We have some big news to go over today as Shams has dropped a bombshell trade report surrounding the Boston Celtics and their stars, including one player in particular that changes everything for the outlook of this team. We're going to break down that exact report and discuss what it means going forward, as well as drop some other rumors that have come out and go over those, because one in particular has fans fired up. So a ton to go over today, folks. Before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Celtic content. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying. And we have a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of conversations. I covered it in a video yesterday. Jaylen Brown underwent surgery. He is expected to be good to go for the opening day. However, for the first game of the year, will it be with the Boston Celtics is the big question. And Shams has come out, and we're going to dive into a bunch of different things here. But Shams has come out with a big report. And you see this here, the Celtics are willing to listen to trade offers for Jaylen Brown and Derrick White per Shams Charania. And he says, our team's making offers, our big offers, and calling about Derrick White and Jaylen Brown 100%. The Celtics prefer not to trade them, from my understanding. But listen, and he basically goes on to say that it will take a massive haul to land either of these two guys, but they are available in the sense of if a massive trade comes along, the Celtics are at least listening to offers. And of course, this is very intriguing because, I mean, at the end of the day, this is the first time we've heard from Shams directly that, they're willing to at least listen to calls for guys like Jaylen Brown, guys like Derrick White. And of course, we know that they are going to be listening to calls for Kristaps Porziņģis, Jrue Holiday, all those different things. The only untouchable at this point 100% seems to be Jayson Tatum. And with the direction that this team is going, they're going in an interesting direction for next season because they have to cut salary, they have to shed salary, get under the luxury tax, all these different things. But they're also, now seemingly going to make at least Jaylen Brown and Derrick White, open to discussions. Now, does this mean they're going to trade him for sure? No, it absolutely does not mean that, but it does mean that other teams are making big offers, and we're going to dive into one in a minute. And he says 100% teams are making offers, and the quote basically goes on to say that if a big offer comes through, the Celtics are going to have to consider it, given the fact that, Jaylen Brown makes a ton of money, all these different things. So this is a very big and interesting report and extremely notable as well, especially given, it's coming from Shams. This isn't just a random report from, Jake Fisher or someone like that who's speculating. This is a firm report from Shams that they are willing to listen to trade offers for Jaylen Brown and Derrick White. And that makes things extremely, extremely interesting going forward because, again, we haven't really heard a lot surrounding, Derrick White. We've heard some things surrounding Jaylen Brown, of course. And I made a video on it yesterday about how his injury could affect the Jaylen Brown sweepstakes if it ever comes to that point. And as you start to look at some teams that are going to be interested, a new report has dropped here. You can see this here, and it's surrounding the San Antonio Spurs. It goes on to say that San Antonio Spurs have a window on their hands with Victor Wembanyama. This increases the urgency to build the best team around him. We know they already got De'Aaron Fox. There's no telling if the Celtics have made Brown available in trade talks until the Shams report came out. So this was before that, a day or two before. So he is available. Now, again, there's a difference between being available in trade talks and actively shopping him. I'm not saying that the Celtics are actively shopping. I don't think Shams is saying that either. But he is available if the right offer comes along, and they're at least listening to trade talks. But if they do, the Spurs have the assets in their arsenal to offer the number 2 pick in the 2025 draft. What makes that asset even better is that it's the second overall pick in a loaded draft class. Now, this is where things get extremely interesting. I have another report and rumor that has dropped surrounding a young prospect on the San Antonio Spurs. But leave a comment right now. A, do you want the Celtics to even entertain a Jaylen Brown trade offer? Do you think it would be better for them to start to build around, Jayson Tatum again and maybe get rid of the $246 million that Jaylen Brown is owed and just see how things work out there? Of course, you'd have to make salaries match in any Spurs trade involving the number 2 pick. You obviously can't just do the number 2 pick for Jaylen Brown. And we'll have another video discussing Derrick White. But surrounding, Jaylen Brown here, he makes a ton of money, and the Spurs do have assets, and there are a lot of teams that have assets. And NBA insider Chris Mannix revealed in the Kevin O'Connor show that should Brown become available, he believes the Spurs may look into acquiring him. He also outlined the deals the Spurs could offer the Celtics for him. If Brown's in play, that's someone I think San Antonio will look at and will go after. That's someone I think if you're the Spurs, you're willing to give the number 2 overall pick plus that kind of, plus players in the Kevin Durant conversation. Now, the big question is, would they be willing to give up Stephon Castle because, just won Rookie of the Year? And, number 2 pick in Stephon Castle, I feel like that would be the type of deal that, Celtics fans would want and the Celtics would want. But at the same time, I'm not sure that the Spurs do that. But let me know down below right now, would you do a deal with a package centered around the number 2 overall pick? And let's put Stephon Castle aside for a minute. The number 2 overall pick, salary filler for Jaylen Brown. Essentially, you'd be kind of resetting your timeline a little bit with Jayson Tatum, letting him recover the full season, kind of tanking, going for a decent draft pick this year, depending on who you get back. I don't think that's the avenue the Celtics, want to go necessarily, but you still be fairly competitive. I mean, you still have some, valuable players on the team. But again, if they're going with this route, they could decide to keep Kristaps or Jrue Holiday, though I don't think that's going to happen. And again, Mannix made it clear that Spurs shooter Brown would be contingent on the Celtics deciding what to do with him, which makes all of these reports that much more important and evident that it could happen with the Shams report that the Celtics are willing to listen to trade offers for Jaylen Brown and Derrick White. And again, it's very interesting here. That's interesting. Jaylen Brown, if he's available, the San Antonio Spurs will go after him. But of course, I covered yesterday, the Celtics announced Jaylen Brown underwent a right knee procedure. He's expected to be ready by training camp. This will make the Spurs hesitant. So the Spurs now, like I discussed in the video yesterday, that injury, it's great news in the sense of he's getting it done early. He's going to be available for training camp, but it's bad news in the sense of if they are deciding to shop him, would that affect his trade value? I ultimately don't think it would. I think most teams would still, if they want Jaylen Brown, they're not going to be fended off by this piece of information. But it is something interesting. And then you also have this, and this was another, rumor that has circulated. This one's more so a rumor. If you're Boston, you're not going to ask for Stephon Castle. You're not going to get Stephon Castle in any potential Jaylen Brown deal. And that's the biggest thing, right? And I mentioned, the number 2 overall pick in Stephon Castle. Obviously, Celtics would do that, you would assume. But that's the type of overwhelming package that Shams is kind of, hinting at in any deal. It would take a massive return. But would you do a deal of number 2 pick? You get Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, future first. That's something I'd watch. And if and when Giannis Antetokounmpo stuff shakes itself out over the next couple of weeks. So we know that the Spurs are in on Giannis or in on Kevin Durant. I think if they miss out on, Giannis in the sense if he stays in Milwaukee and then Kevin Durant, let's say goes to the Raptors, goes to a different team instead of the Spurs, then you kind of want to shift your focus and they could still get a very good player, albeit a much younger one in, Jaylen Brown. And it's very interesting. You see the bottom paragraph. At the end of the day, who knows if the Celtics are seriously considering moving Brown? And that is still true. We don't know for sure if they're seriously considering moving him, but they are willing to listen to trade offers for the 2. And I mean, Derrick White's a part of that as well. It's because they're looking to do anything to shed some salary. And again, we know the knee, it's a positive update surrounding Brown's knee surgery, but it is going to be interesting. If you can see the second, another rumor, just adding smoke to the fire. There are rumblings around the league that there's a chance that Brown could be dealt in a trade. The likelihood of that is low, but if the Celtics decide to pull the trigger, it could help them tremendously with their salary cap. And of course, the easiest way out of the salary cap would be Kristaps Porziņģis, a Jrue Holiday trade or something like that. But at the same time, if they want to go a different way and just kind of shift away and shift their focus overall for this team, then it would be a very interesting idea, especially with Jayson Tatum ruled out for the majority, if not all, of the season next year. But let me know down below what your thoughts are. Lots of reports are happening. Lots of moves are going to be coming. And the Celtics are going to be at the forefront of it, given their luxury tax woes and all the moves that are coming. But let me know down below, do you think the Celtics should trade Jaylen Brown? And if so, would you be okay with the number 2 overall pick in this upcoming loaded draft focus for a Jaylen Brown trade? Thank you guys for watching. See you later.